Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about the game of life. According to the Law of One, your third density incarnation is basically a video game. What you think of reality is at best a weak simulation of what reality really is before you process it and distort it with your senses and your conscious mind. Carla Rueckert often referred to our third density incarnations as a game of life, where we continuously learn how to love, grow, and evolve as spiritual beings. So, what are the rules of the game of life? How can we improve our game? How can we learn to enjoy the game? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups of the L&O research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week. Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with the Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on one of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's topic is the game of life. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, go ahead and let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony, aka Shoto, and I'm calling out here from Washougal, Washington, which is just a little bit north of Portland, Oregon.
So great to see you again, as always, my neighbor. Linda?
My name is Linda Hoagland. I'm calling from Lafayette, Louisiana, where we are currently freezing.
Oh, interesting. Well, it is November. Indeed, it is. So great to see you and happy back, Linda. And Heather?
And I'm Heather Stubbs, and I'm located here in Seattle, Washington.
So great to have you back on the panel, Heather, as always. Did want to remind our viewers that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are just normal people like you, having a conversation about spiritual things that seem important to us. Anything that we say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you're already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on rules of the game. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of the Law of One as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. All the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those other entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they are subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouths as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. So who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind or consciousness. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness, different levels of reality, since those two things are closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness. As many indigenous peoples have been saying for centuries now, we would refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. Clearly a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density. Sixth density is whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond that. It is more complicated than that, and if you want more details, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say that Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at sixth density, Latwii at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then up to present day by the LNL research channeling team. You can find transcripts of those sessions at the LNL Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at rules of the game. On March 18th, 2007, Quo said, "The concept of games is indeed normally associated with some form of amusement or entertainment. However, the entertainment and amusement value of a game is only part of its appeal to a player of a game. There is in humankind a tendency to wish to associate in groups. Once a group associates, it will spontaneously develop at first a rough, and then, as time goes on, a more and more refined set of rules to govern the interactions of the members of that group. Your third density is relentlessly social density. There is literally no way an entity can avoid interacting with other entities of your species. Living upon the third density of planet Earth requires a society. There is an inevitable tendency within the mind of humankind toward creating games. That is, groups of people who are attempting to win something or to gain in some way, and who are attempting to do so together. When this instrument chose the image of the game and extended it as a metaphor throughout the writings of the book, the fit was good because of the fact that in terms of winning a common goal, that is, graduation from third density to fourth density positive, there is a process which follows a certain set of rules in which an entity can succeed in penetrating the game by means of learning, understanding, and applying the rules of the game. Great starting place, and I did want to let our viewers know that the book that they are referring to in that passage is Carla's book called Living the Law of One, 101 The Choice. It can be found in the library at LNL Research. You can either buy a paper copy of it and have it mailed to you, or you can download it as a PDF for free. LNL Research has made a mission of making all its spiritual materials available for free. But in that book, yes, the whole thing is built around the idea that your third density incarnation is like a game. And as they said here, it's a very social game. It involves working with other people. Anthony, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything in this passage?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm head and foot in the game, so I'm trying to do my best to participate. Well, for a long time in my life, I've been trying to figure out what this game is, and it started off for me before the Law of One, like trying to do self-help like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and kind of those like motivational speakers, and eventually evolved into this material. And one thing that I see that's kind of the correlation between the two has to do with how you think, and trying to be aware of your thoughts. And more importantly, what I would just kind of sum it up very easily is the game is love. Is really what it is. It comes down to that. And it's whether you are love of yourself or, as we practice, love of others or other selves. And then once you understand that, it really becomes the game becomes with how much more can I then polarize in those directions? How much more in every action, in every deed, and in every thought can I take that further? Can I take loving further? Can I take loving further? And that's really what the opportunity is all these opportunities will appear in our lives for us to do just that in situations where we normally feel that we cannot. And that's really, for me, that's been the game, is can you love when this happens? Can you love when this happens? Well, can you love when this happens? I'm trying to say yes
Right.
every time.
Yeah, and it's a great reminder that Quo has said many times that third density, maybe the universe in general, is a school of souls, and that the lessons here are lessons of love. That's what we're here to learn. And apparently, working with other people is a great way to learn that lesson. Linda, anything to add? Any thoughts or reflections?
Anthony, I love what you said about it being all about love because there's so many different tangents people can go off on, but it all comes down to being of love and being of service, either to yourself or to other selves. Life is a game, and the rules aren't always clear, but the point is to play with integrity and curiosity. And I know, Jonathan, you're a philosophy major in college. So you probably know that this concept of life being a game dates thousands of years back. There's even in Sanskrit, there's a word lila, which means cosmic play. So, this is a concept that has developed over eons. So
For
I
sure.
really think it's so important that you're touching on this.
Yeah, great reminder. And I did not, in fact, know of those references. So you just taught me something new today. Thank you for sharing that. Heather, anything to add?
Yeah, I think kind of a different perspective is, if you were to go up to somebody, who's not doing well on, in life, and to be like, life is a game, they're going to feel like, well, I'm losing the game. Games are winning and losing. And so in a way, it's a bit of a harsh concept. I think from a 3D or a fractal perspective, it can be a harsh concept. From the higher self perspective, I understand it being a game.
For sure. Yeah, there's a funny meme of a guy saying, life is like a game of chess. I don't know how to play chess. That is so appropriate for third density in
Right.
general, especially these days in hyperpolarized times. It's basically the end of third density, and we are at the beginning of fourth density. And I think for a lot of people, especially if they're still accustomed to thinking about things in terms of third density ways of living, it's super confusing for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I think we have another passage where we're going to dig into this a little bit more. Did anyone have any thoughts, reflections, anything else they wanted to add on this passage before we change it?
I like what Heather said about the fear of failing at whatever game it is you're playing, because we have to take out the word failure and put in the word learn instead. That there is no such thing as failing. Every single failure is a lesson that puts us farther along the path of evolution.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so profound. And I think you're right. A lot of people have that fear and fear of not maybe having accomplished what they came here to do also. And I think Quo has said many times it's impossible for you to fail in your mission if you're alive, if you're existing, taking in breath and transmuting energy just as you do by existing, you're already succeeding in your mission. So take courage in that, viewers. Anyone else? Thanks for sharing that. Any other thoughts on this passage before we look at another one? Cool. I believe this is a continuation from the same session. And here Quo said, the making of the choice of polarity, either service to others or service to self, is indeed the central aspect of what this instrument has been calling in her book, The Game of Life. There is a common goal for all humankind, and that goal is to make the choice. It is a simple concept, and indeed is such a simple concept that it has escaped serious consideration except in those institutions which this instrument would call religious. Therefore, in our opinion, the use of this construction is a positive thing. We believe that the worth of the game in the end will speak for itself, for in the end, one sees a majestic, rainbow-colored structure of spiritual evolution that begins with this choice. Making this choice is the key to the spiritual development of each seeker for many, many lifetimes to come. And this would be a good time to go back to that density visual that we were looking at earlier. And for folks maybe who are new to the law of one, yeah, indeed. Third density is called the density of choice because the whole meaning of life, you might say, is to make a choice between the path of service to others, or STO for short, or service to self, STS to short, in order to graduate on the service to self path. You have to achieve a vibration level of at least 95% service to self, 5% service to others, meaning, to put things simply, you spend roughly 95% of your waking hours thinking only of yourself and how to control or manipulate others in order to gain more power for yourself. And you don't spend more than 5% of your waking hours thinking about the well-being or needs or wants of anyone else. To graduate on the service to others path, you need to achieve a vibration level of at least 51% service to others, 49% service to self, meaning you're thinking of the well-being, needs, and wants of others at least a little bit more than your own. And if you don't make a choice or don't polarize enough to graduate, then you just repeat third density until you do. But as Linda said, I've studied a lot of different religions and philosophies and spiritual paths in the last 45 plus years. And I've never seen anyone make reference to this. And it's like, that's a pretty important thing. If you didn't realize that there is an actual choice to be made in order to continue progressing and evolving as a spiritual being, I would say that that's pretty important to know. Did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here, Linda?
What you pointed out, when you go back to that other slide, it shows that most of the other densities are millions to billions of years long. And that's because they don't have this veil right now that covers third density. There's a veil to keep us from knowing the game ahead of times. If you know what the game is and you know what everybody's playing, as you do in fourth density, because there's instant communication in minds, then you can immediately, you're not going to be gaining any polarity, any goodness from the choices that you make. So that's why it's amazing that third density is only 75,000 years and everything else is like 40 million years when you're in fourth density. It shows how polarizing this point is to make the choice of whether you want to serve or whether you want to be served.
Indeed. Yeah. And as you're saying, and as they mentioned in that passage, making that choice pretty much determines the course of your future incarnations for the next 100 plus millions of years. It's the key to the spiritual development of each seeker for many, many, many lifetimes to come. Heather, any thoughts, reflections?
I like what Linda said there. Linda, that was, yeah, lovely point that this is such a short density. It's only 75,000 years. And hopefully within that time, we have figured out that we do have to make a choice. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a revelation to folks who were not aware that there is such a choice to be made. But I think it would be fair to say that, yeah, if you look around at what's going on in the world these days, things do really seem to be hyper polarized, and we're all being assaulted with catalysts that's really compelling us to make a choice of whether we're only going to think about ourselves and our own needs, or if we are in fact going to think of others, maybe even a little bit more than ourselves. Anthony, any thoughts, reflections?
I got a couple things. First, when you spoke about religions and studying religions, I've also, maybe not as professionally and as organized as you have, but I've kind of looked at religions my whole life. And my hardest challenge with them was kind of the hypocrisy in a sense. You know, my biggest thing growing up was, how could this individual that they call God have all of this omnipotence but create these individuals and then get mad at them for doing things that he was supposed to already know? And so that was very challenging as a kid, that God had this anger towards Adam and Eve, or this vengeance toward them. It's like, didn't you know what they were going to do? And then it seems very unintelligent to me that you would get upset if you knew what they're going to do. And so when I came across this material, it really helped me feel, it really resonated with me because it made sense, right? That a creator wouldn't set up a situation where anything would be working against itself, right? And so that's why we have these two paths. And the interesting thing is, no matter what path you're serving, the game is rigged. It's rigged to serve this creator. It does not matter what it is that you are doing, whether it be even from the third density up to the sixth density, and there's a negative path, it all ends in the creator. And it begins in the creator. And so that's something to think about, that there is an organization or a kind of purpose to this whole situation. And then the last thing I'll point on is the simplicity of it. It's so simplistic that it's hard. And I'm probably going to talk about the same topic throughout the call, but it's love, right? And the simplicity of it is that's the only answer. And so that is complicated to us as humans. The person cuts me off on the road. The response is love? No, hell no. That dude just cut me over and did it. My son just took his diaper off with boo-boo on it. The response is love? No, I got to clean up this crap on the ground, right? The person slaps me in the face. The answer is love? Yeah. So the only answer is love. But the complexity is the fact that we have, as you started the call off, all of these layers of filtering that come from society, come from our childhood, come from our own past experiences that layer all of these dimensions and all these colorations to love. And so when we look at the simple answer, it does not compute, because it can't be that simple. It can't be so simple that I don't even have to think about it. It's all these layers to it. And I found in my practice, especially listening to these channelings over and over again, it's kind of the inside joke if you start to think about it when they say, you just need to find what it is that you seek most. You just need to find what you desire most. When you find what it is that you are truly desiring of, Hatan says it a lot, then everything will come together. The inside joke is what they're talking about is the desire to serve the creator. They don't tell you that's your true desire. And I encourage everyone who sees this to really look into it for themselves. That is truly what we're seeking, as someone who's experiment with a lot of things, when you're trying these new things, these different chemicals or these different experiences or these different physical connections with people, what you're truly seeking is you're seeking love. And that love is the love of the creator. And when it's not, when we don't realize that, or it's distorted, or we label it something else, then it feels other, right? And we continue then to search for it, right? But when we start to realize what we're seeking is the creator, and the creator is in every moment, and we can focus our attention and realize, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to the creator.
Right. Yeah, and that is the meaning of that beginning statement that we said about the law of one being a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. Everything is creator, everything is love. And as I think maybe we hinted at a little bit earlier, that is probably one of the more difficult things for people who are, say, on the service to others path to understand, that in the eyes of creator, the service to self path is just as valid as the service to self path. Not sure if I said that right. Service to self path is just as valid as the service to others path. And that in the eyes of creator, what we refer to as evil is really equally valid as good, because creator learns about both, about itself in both ways. And maybe you think of it in terms of what you were saying, in terms of loving the creator. You could say that the service to others path is really about seeing and loving the creator in yourself and all other selves, whereas the service to others path is really just about seeing and loving the creator in yourself only and not in anyone else. But in either case, you're still loving the creator. You're still serving the creator in two different ways. And it's a win-win for creator either way. That's a challenging thing, I think, for a lot of folks to accept. Does anybody have any thoughts on that or anything else from this passage?
Well, I would just say, though, and even though it is challenging for me, it was challenging for me too in the beginning, but as you didn't realize it, though in sixth density, they have to drop that whole aspect of it. It's almost kind of a cosmic joke. They spend these millions of years separating themselves, focusing on how to do it, figuring out all these mechanisms and ways to do it very successfully, all for it to be dropped in one moment. One moment. When they realize they can't go any further. I can't go any further, and I have to go further. Millions of years drops. And then they, as Ross says, they become the most fervent.
Right.
And that reminds me of, if you ever seen someone who's maybe gone to jail and they come out of jail and they're like super religious people. Either they found Islam or they found Christianity. These guys are into it. And I've met people like that when I used to record in the studio. And it's very true. People who live life, a very challenging life, and they find some type of spirituality, usually become very fervent in it. Because, and I end on this, because what we think is evil, the rapist, the murderer, these usually are service to other people who are damaged and they're hurt. And they think that by hurting other people, that somehow they can solve their problem. Interesting thing about service to others is that these individuals, they're so well at what they do. They spend just as much time practicing and studying this stuff as we do. A lot of times that I would beg to differ that you probably would not know this person serves themselves in that way, because that is their job, is to manipulate and to con. These are the politicians, the business people, the church leaders, people you would leave your kids with and you have no idea. And so we have to be very careful about what we interpret as negativity or bad, I should say, when negativity can be very clever in the way that they present themselves. And you never know, you maybe leave your kids with this person, and in the evening, all they're thinking about and everything that they're doing is serving themselves. Even in helping you watch your kids somehow benefits them. And you may think they're the nicest person in the world. So you just don't know.
Yeah. As has been said many times, third density is designed to be confusing and confounding and not really obvious what service to others and what service to self is. I can think of people who, to me, it could not be more obvious that they are at least outwardly service to others, but others are looking at the same person and seeing it totally different. And that's part of the game. I think each person kind of needs to figure out for themselves. Anyone else have any thoughts, reflections on that?
I agree with you that, in my view, the creator rejoices as much at any act that is performed. It does not matter whether we consider it a positive act or a negative act. It is still an experience for the creator to learn itself. And that's what all of this is about. That's why life was created. Where all this evolution is for the creator to learn.
I always think of the yin yang symbol. You really need the light and the dark in order to be complete and whole. And it's not really appropriate to say that the light part is better than the dark part, any more than the positive end of a battery is better than the negative end of a battery. They're just different energies and different polarities. And as we've said many times, Creator is infinitely intelligent and always wants to understand more about itself. That includes the extreme limits of the light as well as the extreme limits of the dark. And yeah, I like the part where Anthony was reminding us what Quo said about at some point in mid-sixth density, service to self entities realize they really cannot progress or evolve any further until they acknowledge the reality that Creator is in other selves as well and not just themselves. And so they have to switch polarity and go immediately to sixth density service to others. They don't have to start over on the service to others path. They're already at the top. And as Anthony said, yeah, it's like the recent convert to Christianity is often the most passionate, fervent compared to folks who have been like on that path for their whole life. Always reminds me of the Christmas Carol when you think of Scrooge at the end when he wakes up again after thinking he was dead on Christmas Day, and he's the one who appreciates Christmas more than anybody else. I like to think that's kind of what it's like for that person who switched polarity, those entities. And it's a gift to Creator, for sure. Any other thoughts, reflections before we move on? I think I did want to note that if you look at the colors associated with the densities, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, there is in fact a correlation with our chakras, which follow those same things. And Ra and Quo have said that the colors of those densities are indeed the colors as shown on your screen, because there is a correlation with your chakras or energy centers. And that yellow ray, which kind of corresponds to third density, does deal with group identity and our relationships with groups of other selves. And the green ray or heart chakra, which is the fourth energy ray, which correlates with fourth density, is about universal unconditional love. And it's the springboard to higher chakras. So fourth density is indeed referred to as the density of love and understanding. And I think it would be fair to say it's about unconditional love for all others, including those who you don't particularly like, or maybe on the service to self path, unconditional love for yourself, no matter how despicable you may seem to other people, no matter how heinous or cruel the things you do to others, to still be able to love yourself in spite of that is, I suppose, another form of unconditional love. Oh, anyone have any thoughts on that before we move on?
I would just say that I'm at the part in my studies here as I loop through it, where Don is kind of questioning about that with Ra, that how could it be that they are able to see beyond the veil in fourth density? They know that the end result is this sixth density, they're having to swap over. How could they do that? And I took some time to ponder it, and I kind of thought about it like, we all know those kind of people, for lack of a better word, are like, fuck it. Like, why not? I mean, at the end of it all, it all ends in the same place. Why not just spend third, fourth, fifth density doing whatever the heck I want to do? It's kind of that attitude, right? And someone has to do it. Why not be me, in a sense, right? And so it's challenging to think that the universe has these aspects of itself that are kind of negative, but they're also a necessity. Later on, I'll kind of, when the timing's right, there's a little parable that I wanted to share with you guys that kind of illustrates that, but I won't go into it now, but I'll share it later. But it's definitely, it helps. It helps to have a weight to lift against on the positive path, to be able to have something to push against. Because before this creation, as Ross said, that the experience was in monochrome, because everything was service to others. And so the propensity or the desire to learn or to grow was not there. And Don kind of likened it to, and I'm paraphrasing, like Richie Rich. If you're born into extreme wealth, do you have a desire to go out and work at McDonald's, or to try to struggle or try to experience things or that someone who does not have wealth has to go through and do? Therefore, in those times, why should I try to seek the creator more than what I experience right now? I'd see it, I know it, I'm aware of it. Yeah, I know there is fourth density, and I know there's this work where I have to more focus my love. I love everyone, but I need to focus it where I'm consciously doing it. That's another thing that we have to also look at, is that it's not just a matter of doing negative things. It's a matter of polarizing your consciousness so everything that comes into your privy is then controlled. It's about controlling or disciplining, I should say, your consciousness. And the same thing is on the positive side. Everything that comes into our privy, we must accept with love. And so it is both challenging. And as you dive into this, it is a respect you have to have for that type of discipline. I would never want to wake up and have to think 95% of my time how I manipulate, con, and scheme and one up the next guy. However, some people enjoy
and worry
that.
about being backstabbed by the person under you. Yeah.
Exactly right. But there are people in this world that look at the world like that. The world is a hard, dangerous, treacherous place. And if it wasn't for people like me who could then protect and guide and train you, or to teach you, or like Loki, from using my pop phrase, Loki, it's your privilege to be guided and lead by me. Or like Thanos, you have died at the hand of Thanos. You are so blessed to be able to die by my hand, because my rulership is so
yes, I saw Avengers Infinity War too.
And that's what they think. They think they think they are smarter than the creator themselves, and that they have an obligation.
I think that's the answer to your question in terms of why anybody would choose to follow that path of service to self, knowing that eventually you're going to have to rejoin the path of service to others, because it is about the power of Thanos wearing the Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, yeah, the feeling of being the one infinite creator and feeling that power and control over others. Yeah, I totally get why people would understand it. It's not a path I would want to choose, because you have to be willing to kill, cripple, maim anyone and not to love anyone or care about anyone. That's not a path I would choose for myself. But as you said, those who choose that are, in the end, being of service to others, because they are helping the creator understand more about itself. That helps everybody.
Real quick, I think quote said it's like the difference between two people taking a trip. One hitchhikes or walks there and enjoys the scenery and enjoys the view. Another one hops in a car and drives through every person that they see, running over cars, animals, people. They don't care how they get there, they drive through a building. One is service to others, the car, and the service to others is walking to the destination. So it's just those two different paths.
Indeed. Any other thoughts, reflections before we change topics? Look at another passage.
Well, on the fourth density, the density of love, the fourth density negative is no flower garden for the entity, because they're starting down. When they switch from the third density into fourth density, they're down at the bottom of the totem pole. And there's all these negativities that know how to, quote, play the game and how to stay on top and get worse and worse and stronger and more evil, so to speak. And so it's hard for them because they're down there getting their butts kicked constantly, metaphorically speaking.
Right. Yeah, apparently, according to Raw, Hitler was not bad enough to graduate to fourth density on the service to self path. So you have to be worse than Hitler in order to graduate on that path. And yeah, I
Because he
would
had
not want to
love
be.
for his people. Because he had love for his people. That's the
He
interesting
thought
thing.
he was doing it for his country, which sort
And
of
that's
depolarized.
and that's the trippy thing about service to others, is that someone who thinks the same way as Hitler, who may not be as evil as him, might think he's an awesome person. Look what he's doing for our people, right? And this is the danger of that, is that it's so hard to see.
Intent is everything.
Groping
Law
in the
of
moonlight, I
confusion.
believe, was the phrase. Law of confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's move on. We've been here for about 30 minutes and we've covered 2 passages. Let's take a look at passage on understanding the game. This is from August 21st, 1983, and this is the entity known as Latui, one of the 3 social memory complexes that makes up Quo. Latui said, "Within all games, shall we say, within all patterns of your illusion, there are movements of the energies which are not often understood by the players within the games. This is so because each of us within any illusion exists within an ordered universe, a universe of unity. The energies which express in any pattern or illusion, therefore, are a function of the nature of the game, shall we say. To give an analogy, one may look at a body which you call an ocean. The game which is played by the wind, the sun, and the earth with the water has a pattern. The waves crest, the currents flow, because those elements which play the game of ocean form thus and so. In a smaller game, a game which you may describe as a form of cards, has no less the force of such energies within its plane. Those entities which partake in the game are much like the sun, the wind, the earth, and the water. There are certain attractions, certain expelling or repulsions. There are added unto these energies the conscious and unconscious desires and force of will, which affect the flow, shall we say, as they are shuffled, dealt, played, shuffled, dealt, and played. The energies in motion are not visible to most of us, yet act as surely as they do sun, wind, water, and earth. I love the visuals here and I love the nature references. I think what I'm picking up is that, if you study nature, then you'll see the patterns of how the different elements and living things interact with each other. And that's kind of what they're saying with the game of life. If you're ever observant, you'll pick up on patterns in there as well. Maybe recurring lessons, things that keep coming to you, happening to you over and over again, telling you that this is one of those lessons that you needed to learn. What do you think? Heather, any thoughts on anything here?
I think first, just the recognition of patterns. Many people don't even recognize that there are these certain patterns within their lives, within the lineage, their generations. But to start to recognize the patterns is a huge, I would say a huge part of the choice. Then it talks about certain attractions, certain expelling and or repulsions, which is, are we giving or are we receiving? Are we taking? Are we keeping? So that when you're talking about understanding the game within all experiences, to be able to recognize, am I trying to control this situation, or am I able to give it love and move through the situation? So, yeah.
Yeah, well said. That's beautiful. And I appreciate that you kind of highlighted the part about attracting, expelling, or repulsions. It's a good reminder that the service to others path has been described as the path of radiating, giving away, and the path of service to self as a path of absorption or attracting. And again, it doesn't mean that one path is better than the other, again, any more than the North Pole of a magnet is better than the South Pole. They're just different polarities, different energies. And as you're saying, if you can look at what's happening in the world in terms of this interaction between positive and negative entities and look for the patterns, I think can help one understand the game. Do you have
Yeah.
any thoughts on, I'm sorry,
Well, just agreeing.
any thoughts on that, Anthony, or anything else from this passage?
Well, not anything specific that comes to mind. I mean, I'm really enjoying the theme that we're discussing here because it is something that is, ongoing in my life. I assume with everyone is really how to use like a raw word, how to be efficacious, right? With our time and with how we then apply our energy. What I would really focus on is going back to the simplicity of the aspect of love, because that's really what's been in my life, what has been the kind of North Star in a sense, because of the simplicity of the fact that in every situation, like I was saying before, that my response, I'm trying to focus on how can I polarize that to be in at least a place of, I want to say compassion, couched in wisdom, right? Because I don't want to go so far that, for example, if my son's coming over here and placing things, I don't want to go so far to the point where I'm martyring myself or I'm doing things, because I am in a 3D world. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I do have responsibilities. So I have to be wise in my service, right? I can't go give away all my money to the first person, homeless person, even though that might feel great and awesome, right? Because I have to, make sure this little guy is taken care of, right? But so how do I balance that, right? How do I balance how to respond to these situations when things are frustrating and I feel entitled to it, especially when you have a spouse or a wife. Wife is a spouse. But when you have a partner in your life, and we deal with those situations where we feel entitled to certain things, or we feel that because of this, that, and the third, that this person should feel a certain way. When actuality, in all of those situations, the only response is love. However that may be, or however you may feel, if you can find a way to then say it from a place of love, then you'll be awesome. And speaking of love, let me go ahead and deal to my little one. Let's go ahead and moving my chair around.
Indeed. Yeah, I know it's been said at least once or twice that that love is the answer to every question and the solution to every problem. And it's a good reminder that another word for God in the law of one is the one original thought, and that thought is love, meaning everything in the universe is only made of one thing, and that's love, and maybe more distorted in some forms than others, and yet it is all love. It's a beautiful thing to understand in terms of looking at how to play this game. Linda, anything to add?
I like, Jonathan, how you touched on the fact that in terms of learning lessons, that certain lessons are going to be repeated over and over and over until we learn how to deal with it in a way that's ethical, perhaps, or a way that to shine meaning into our life. So I thought that was a very pertinent message that you said there.
And that, I believe, is a great segue into our next passage, I think. Shall we go ahead and take a look at that? Did anybody else have anything on this passage? Let's take a look here. This is from another session with Latwii, but on a different date. This was from June 5th, 1983, and Latwii said, "The recurring type dream is most usually that message from the unconscious portion of the mind, or deeper self, which attempts to give the conscious mind a basic message or theme for the incarnation. This is a recurring phenomena, for it is a foundation stone of the seeking process for the entity experiencing the recurring dream. It is similar to the child which has attempted to learn a simple childhood game, shall we say, and finds some portion of the game beyond its ability to master, and therefore in later experiences, as the years pass, discovers that this portion reappears and again provides the opportunity for the mastering. The entity continues the experiences and finds that until there is the mastery of the lesson, the lesson continues to appear. And I think that's a super important part of understanding this so-called game of life. If you can learn to see those patterns, see things that seem to keep happening over and over, like maybe beginning in childhood and throughout, then you can see that must be a lesson that I came here to learn. And until you master it, you're going to keep seeing those lessons come up in different forms, kind of like I believe has been referred to as the proverbial board to the head, until you get the lesson and figure it out. What do you think, Anthony? Any thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Well, yeah, I definitely feel the board to the head more times than often. I would say, well, I kind of want to discuss or go back to kind of that parable thing that I wanted to say here before I left. And I'll just be real quick about it. It was actually something that was shared to us by Aaron. You guys know who Aaron is, right? And so in the story, just real quickly, there was a village. And the village, everyone was peaceful. Everyone was harmonious, right? Except for one individual. We call him Bob, right? And Bob was very cankerous. Everyone didn't like Bob. I never participated, never cleaned up his area, and everyone had an issue with Bob. And then one day, the tribe leader or the village leader, he had to go away for town or whatever, and everyone got together and figured this is a great time to get rid of Bob, right? And so they all got some money together, got whatever they needed, and they asked Bob to leave. Bob's like, yeah, F you guys, I'm leaving. I don't like y'all anyways. So then the leader of the village comes back, and he's walking around, reading everybody, and notices that Bob is gone, right? So then he goes and asks the villagers, what happened to Bob? And like, oh, don't worry, all good. We got rid of Bob. You know, he was a big problem for us. You know, he's never cooperating. We didn't like him. And the leader was like, no, we got to get him back. And they're like, why? He's like, because Bob gives us the ability to really test ourselves. If it wasn't for Bob, who would challenge us to be kind? If it wasn't for Bob, who would give us an opportunity to practice what it is that we say that it is that we do? All of us are well and easy to each other. That's easy, but can we love someone like Bob? And that's what that gives us the opportunity to do. And that's really kind of what I wanted to point out in my experience of the game of life. I know I sound like a broken record, but I truly feel it's looking at these opportunities and seeing how you can love in those situations. Because that's what fourth density is. And fourth density, they are so enamored with service that to eat is the lesson. To slow down, to not help someone, to feed yourself. That is a lesson because you're so wanting and so desirous of wanting to help others. And so here we can't even motivate someone to get a cup of coffee for me, if on their own, right? Or do something, just of service to you. But in fourth density, that has been so refined that to do the opposite is a challenge, right?
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important to understand the idea of fourth density. When they call it the density of love, I would interpret that as density of unconditional love, meaning not just loving your family, your spouse, your kids, or your friends, or the people that you already like, but it's being able to love all others, including the people you really have a hard time with, like Bob or whoever, or complete strangers, people you've never met and never will. It's about being able to see the Creator in all other selves. And I think that is a super important thing to understand. And yeah, as you said, having service to self entities and a service to other self certainly makes it more challenging and helps us really to learn how to love unconditionally. And I think that's a super important thing. I suppose the other way too, service to other societies need to have service to others entities so they have people to enslave. So I think it kind of goes both ways. It's a yin yang thing, I think. Yeah. Linda, anything to add? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
No, I think basically the passage says it all, and in such a way that it says what the importance.
Beautiful. Heather?
I just wanted to point out how this one talks about the recurring type dream, which is a message from the unconscious portion of the deeper mind, which is also a basic message or theme for the incarnation. And it's funny, like I'll have this reoccurring dream that I'm trying to find my cats. And like my cats can be like in a group of other cats, and then cats will come up to me and I'm like, no, like that's not my cat. And I don't understand. I don't understand what this message is. Right? But that's why
your life is basically hurting cats, is what I'm getting from it. Yeah.
But it's interesting when you put that layer in there about trying to understand what your subconscious portion of the mind is trying to teach you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And dream work is not something I have spent a lot of time, but I can see how recurring dreams are certainly lessons in the way that you're referring to here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm reminded yet again, for folks who pay attention to current events, there do seem to be like increasingly intense, polarizing events happening that I think, again, are compelling people who either were not aware that there's a choice to be made or haven't polarized enough to pick a side, choose, see if you can discern between what you see as service to others, what you see as service to self, and commit to that. Commit to either being of service to others or service to self, however you see it. And again, every person sees it differently. So that's for each person to figure out. But it's going to keep happening. I think the message I was getting at, you're going to see more and more catalysts until you make a choice, until everyone who can does indeed make a choice. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? I think we've got another topic to look at. Let's take a look at a passage on improving your game. This is, I think, another passage from Latouille on August 21st, 1983. Latouille said, each entity is as the one who plays the game you call cards. Poker, for example. The hands are dealt. Each card seems significant. The hands are played. Each hand seems significant. The game then seems significant, and each card formally played loses some significance. Another hand is dealt, another hand, and another. Game after game after game is played. Some victories and some losses are recorded. The entity becomes, shall we say, an old hand at playing this game. The significance of each game grows less. Wisdom accrues, and the entity looks with wizened eye at each card, each hand, each game, and the significance grows less. The entity becomes aware that more exists than one card, one hand, one game, and the entity's view enlarges until eventually, and hopefully, the entity is able to accept all cards dealt, all cards played by self and other self, and is able to look beyond the game and see a greater significance. Really interesting passage. I think we've got another passage on the poker game metaphor that we're going to take a look at later. Otherwise, the interesting lesson I'm seeing from here is that part of improving your game is realizing that this incarnation you're in is like one hand of poker, and you've had countless incarnations before this. You're going to have countless incarnations after this. And while everything in this life does seem really, really super important, what they're saying is realizing that this is just one step, and maybe not to dwell so much on the details, but just learn as much as you can, try to get as better as you can, and just know that you'll have as many opportunities as you need to learn those lessons of love and such. Linda, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, it kind of supports the idea that setbacks are part of the process, sort of like or losing a round of hands of cards. Is there's going to be, the process is part of the idea that there's going to be failure. So if life is the game, the point you will learn, it points not to win, but to play artfully, to play collaboratively, and to find meaning in the journey instead of meaning in each game.
Yeah, which goes back to that first passage where they're talking about how third density is a relentlessly social density. The lessons that we came here to learn, apparently, are learned by interacting with other selves. Super important.
And also learned by failing.
Indeed.
You
Indeed.
know, if you win, that's wonderful, but you really, really learn by the failure.
Yeah. And that is, I think, a difficult thing for a lot of people to accept, as we talked about folks who are afraid of failing for sure. And I do find a lot of reassurance in these passages that you have all the time in the universe that you need, and nothing you do in this incarnation could be considered a failure. I think that is maybe one of the most valuable things that I get from the Law of One, the understanding that reincarnation is indeed a real thing. For folks who haven't really thought about it, could see how, you only live once would be the saying that this is all you got. And that changes everything in the way you look at life if you see it in terms of progression and spiritual growth and evolution. We did do a podcast episode on reincarnation. We did do a podcast episode on Journey of Souls about the works of Dr. Michael Newton, who took hundreds of people through hypnotic regressions, where they talked about not just the past lives, but about the life between life experiences they had of healing from trauma, sharing experiences, things learned with their spirit guides and with others in their soul group or spiritual family, and preparing for the next incarnation. So check out those episodes if you want to see a little bit more about this context. Heather, anything here? Any comments?
This passage, I think I focus a lot on the word significance, because it talks about, when you're playing the game, each card is significant. So each life, is significant. But then they talk about the significance of each game grows less. Wisdom and the wisdom accrues, and the entity looks with wizened eye at each card, each hand, each game, and the significance grows less. And then at the end, it talks about to look beyond the game and see a greater significance. So, where like this is where our focus and attention has to be. By the time we're our sixth density higher selves, there's much more grace, and whether we learn the lessons in this life or the next life. So, yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate that, because it does seem a little bit counterintuitive to me. I would think you see more of the significance of every moment in this incarnation and of this incarnation. And they seem to be saying more or less the opposite. The significance grows less when you realize you have so many, many more incarnations. I think maybe to go to out of the poker game analogy and go to a video game analogy, it's like having multiple lives in a video game, except in a video game, you only get like 3 or 4 lives. Here, you have an infinite number of lives, so you never
Lives.
really have to worry about like running out of lives. I would think that makes a big difference and takes a bit of the weight off your shoulders in looking at that way.
Yeah.
What do you think, Anthony? Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about love. Something that came to mind as I was thinking that is, in order to act in that way, another simple concept that's really complicated is faith, right? What enables us to then play this game and to have, in a sense, less significance in it is the acting upon faith and then experiencing the feedback from that enacting, right? The interesting about faith in my experience is that you start at literally like zero, right? And you literally have to inject faith, right, to then start seeing the results of faith, right? So it literally takes a stepping out into the unknown, right, and seeing what then happens to then know that you are supported. And I think I think Paul and them spoke about that. The initial act then helps, and not in the sense of squaring, but it does build upon the next attempt of faith. And I really would challenge people to hone their faith and to really, I don't want to say test it, but to start to rely on it more and see what happens. And once, I'm a person of a lot of faith. I've always just had that, maybe not my one little gift to myself when I came in here, but I've always known that there's been something, I've never felt alone in a sense, right? And I've always felt like there's something supporting. And so that, for me, is the reason why I can, in a sense, extend that love and be able to extend it to other people, because of the faith that it's for something greater, right? And until you have that, it's really challenging to say, hey, go love everyone, respond in love this way, respond in love that way. But if you don't have faith that by doing so, that you're serving the creator, or by doing so, you're serving your other selves, then it seems very futile. It seems very kind of a stupid thing to do, right? And so I really challenge people to to develop their faith and to take small calculative opportunities to test that, you know.
It's a great reminder that the word faith comes up a lot in channeling sessions, almost as much as the word meditation, which they seem to prescribe every single chance they can get. But yeah, as Quo has said many times, faith really is such a central part of this incarnation. It is the choice card. It's the fool, the 22nd archetype in the archetype of the mind, and is often pictured as a person walking blindly off a cliff without really any regard to what comes afterwards. I think it is such a central part of this game, as it were, to be willing to do things on faith that seem like really bad ideas to other people, but following your heart and your instinct, that's what tells you is the right thing to do. It's a never-ending lesson. Anyone else have any other thoughts on this passage before we change topics? Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on enjoying the game. On November 13th, 2010, Quo said, "You are loved, you are needed, you are full of purpose, and you simply need to let go of any preconceived notions as to how that works and simply engage in life to the best of your ability as a conscious seeker that understands the power of choice, the power of desire, the power of intention. The universe will begin to perceive you as joining the dance. You will begin to get synchronicities back. You'll see repeating numbers. You will see your totem animal. You will see the signs that what you were thinking is important and that what you were thinking just now is especially important. So ponder it. The universe will begin to help you. You will feel that feedback. And the more you lean into that, the more you will receive it. So that eventually, when someone says, well, why do you believe the way you do? You have almost no ability to explain because you're an old, experienced hand at working with the game of life now. You understand about choices. You understand about love. You understand about the hall of mirrors in which all things speak to you, people, situations, and things. And you are comfortable at last in this game and enthusiastic to play it. Really beautiful passage, and I love this since so many people, even in the Law of One community, seem to be no more enthusiastic about anything than getting the hell out of the density, leaving this prison planet and going someplace much better. And I think that is such a key to understanding the game of life, is learning how to enjoy the game. And I love the references to synchronicities and repeating numbers and totem animals. It's just a beautiful way of looking at it. Oh, that's part of the wiring, the programming of the video game, that when you're on the right path, it sends you those little signals that tells you on the right path. What a beautiful, cool thing to realize, for sure. Oh, Heather, any thoughts on anything here in this passage?
The first part of it, where it talks about let go of any preconceived notions as to how that works and simply engage in life to the best of your ability. Engage as a conscious seeker that understands the power of choice, the power of desire, and the power of intention. It's interesting when you think about, okay, if you're going to let go of any preconceived notions and just engage in life to the best of your ability, I tend to not think of myself setting intention in that type of perspective. It goes on to say as a conscious seeker, but you think of those who are, I would say, not conscious seekers at this point. And they're just living life. They've just let go and they're just living life. So sometimes I feel like it's almost like we work so hard to seek. We work so hard to know, and part of that is to just release and let go, which I think brings us back to that faith. Letting go, to me, is faith. I should be able to have that faith and not necessarily set an intention, but have the desire, and understand my power of choice.
For sure. Yeah, and again, that's one of many things that I appreciate about the Law of One, and looking at that, if you can remember that graphic of the densities, it really shows a roadmap to the evolution spiritual evolution of the universe. It shows where you've been in the very distant past and where we're headed in the very distant future, and realizing that, oh, there really is a purpose to this life, and that it isn't just a bunch of random atoms and molecules that just happen to get thrown together at random and are going to dissolve into nothing at the end. But no, there's much more to it, and it's a beautiful purpose, a beautiful thing. I would think for a lot of people that changes the way you look at life.
Yeah.
Certainly did for me. Yeah. Anthony, anything to add?
No, not this time.
Linda?
Well, in this game of life that we're involved in, you can choose your character, you can level up, you can reframe bad experiences as lessons. And so we take this metaphor and it allows you to adopt a lighter, shall we say, mindset, while still engaging seriously with life's opportunities and relationships.
For sure. Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite Law of One movies, which is Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. It is about a guy who has to keep repeating the same day over and over and over again, and it's never explained why. It just is. But once he realizes what's going on and learns that, oh, he can actually like do more and more, and finally eventually learns to think of others rather than just himself, and learns how to use each day to get better and better at being of service to others. That's how he breaks the spell and is able to graduate, shall we say, and move on with his life. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And you can think of each incarnation as another day to relive and try to get better at it, like Linda was saying. Better at loving others. Anyone else have any thoughts on anything before we move on?
I would just say one thing. I wanted to speak on something that Heather mentioned about people kind of living kind of free. And what I've seen though is more so because I've even been in that state kind of before I knew where I was seeking. And isn't really free though. It's kind of more of a state where whatever comes about, I don't really look deeper into. So when this person yells at me and I feel hurt, I don't look deeper into maybe this hurt has to do with how my mother treated me when I was a child, and the fact that I'm reacting this way has to do with some drama or some trauma that I have within me, and you know, or even taking it from a more of a law of one perspective, of looking at, well, maybe this is another self. This is another aspect of me. Another thing too is even looking deeper to the fact that the things that we don't like in others, what is it about that activity that I do in my own self that I don't like? Maybe that may be the stim of it. Maybe I hate when I'm late. So when I see John late, I really get on him because I can't stand when I'm late. Or I hate when I forget to pay a bill. And I never forget to pay a bill because I hate it. But if I see someone forget to pay a bill, I'm going to be on the ass because I hate that in myself. So I think that there's a difference between, let's say different. I think it's important for us to be more conscious, or the opportunity for us to build any type of polarity in any direction is about the conscious ability to then seek what it is that we desire, right? As opposed to just everything that comes to us. We just think the universe is this randomized place, right? That just, I happen to be, some people that do good, some people do bad, and I'm just a victim of all this stuff, right? To someone who makes a choice that I'm no longer a victim. I'm going to accept everyone that comes into my situation. I'm going to love them. I'm going to care for them. And anything that I see wrong in another person, I'm going to first look into myself to see what that problem is, right? Yeah. And same thing on the other side, right? We have just the opposite of it. And so, right. And I say, I don't mean to push back on that. I just think that it may look fun from this side, because I'm definitely like the guy in the Matrix at times where I'm like, just put me back in the Matrix, bro. Just throw me back in there. Make sure my steak tastes like steak. And this whole law of one thing, it's very brief, waiting for 2 seconds or something like that. I don't want to know about it. Just throw me back in there, right? But then you realize, like, what is that? That's just being, in this unconscious kind of, you don't have any control. At least on this side, as challenging it is, at least you know where the buck stops at.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, and the funny thing about the Matrix is it's about basically how what we think of reality is in fact an illusion, and the greater reality is horrific. It's way worse than you thought it was in the illusion. And I love how in the Law of One, they really just take that and flip it around the other way and help you realize that it is true. What you think of as reality is an illusion, but the real reality is so much better and so much more beautiful than you think it is when an illusion. But yeah, as Linda said, once you understand the game, maybe you can understand it a little, you can enjoy it a little bit more once you realize how it works, which is why we're doing this podcast. Anyone have any other thoughts on this passage before we change topics, look at something else? Sounds good. I lied. I think we have a second passage on the same topic. This is from October 13th, 2009, and quote here said, as you can become more used to viewing your experiences from a certain point of view in which you are almost, as this instrument would say, playing the game of life, you will find that your witnessing self becomes ever stronger and your keen appetite to take on such experiences as the coworker being cruel to you becomes so strong that you find yourself with the balm of Gilead at your hand, and you are not caught up in the negative feelings that surround that cruel action that has been done to you, but rather you're dancing with the energies that would keep your heart open and would see him, even though it seems almost impossible, as the creator, as part of you, and you part of him or part of her. There may come a time within the incarnation when you balance at the gateway to intelligent infinity, seeing your life as a whole thing, one integrated entirety, and as part of the Godhead principle, it may well come to you to say, and this is good. Hold those moments dear, and remember them because they are the truth, and then you shall plunge back into cycles. We wish we could give you the good news that one's work is hard, yet finally it is done, yet within incarnation, your agenda shall always be to attend to the present moment and to dance it with love. Really beautiful passage, and I love the reference to the balm of Gilead. It comes up more than a few times in different channeling sessions, and I believe it's something that comes from the Christian tradition in the Bible, where the balm of Gilead is like some ointment or potion that brings healing to the spirit and to the body and to the heart. And reminds me of something that you might find some magical potion on the quest in some sort of video game or something like that, but something that can help ease the pain and suffering that you have from the corrosive catalyst of third density, shall we say. What do you think here, Anthony? Anything on this passage?
I always like the idea of that ball. How you say it? Balm of Gilead.
Gilead is how I
Gilead?
think it's pronounced. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I always it's always interesting when that comes up in the channelings. As far as specifically on this, I kind of feel it's kind of piggybacking on what I was saying earlier about having faith and love and kind of the theme of it all. When you start to, and I know all of us have, when you start to read this stuff over and over again, that is the theme. The theme is love. And I'll tell you now. I was going to wait for later, but I heard Hatan say this, and to me, I felt it was a joke because it was so hilarious. Because at the end of a channeling, I can't remember which one it was in the 80s, Hatan, and they normally don't do this, Hatan was like, I hear an unspoken question. The answer's love.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't even matter what the question is. It's
yeah,
like,
I was going to say, really doesn't matter what the question was.
know,
I'm pretty sure that was the
so
answer.
I had this very humorous vision of like this guy like in like the very like colorful turban type thing, with the like the kind of carnival type thing, and him going, I hear I hear an unspoken question.
Yeah.
The answer's love, right?
Oh, that's great. That's beautiful.
But that's the true thing about life is, the answer is always love, and to strengthen that we must move with faith, and I encourage anyone that to practice that, because in my own life, the times when I've been able to step out and to truly have faith, I've never been disappointed. I've never been disappointed. It's only the times when doubt and worry and other things that creep in and overshadow that faith. But the few times in my life where I've gone out and I've said, you know what, I'm just gonna have complete faith, I've never been disappointed.
Such a beautiful reminder. Thank you. Linda, any thoughts, reflections on this?
Yeah, the person who was doing this channeling was Carla. And This is just a little story about Carla. She was going to college. She got her degree in library science, and her first job was at the University of Louisville Library. And her boss there was horrible and this boss did everything they could do to make Carla's life miserable, finding fault with everything, constantly getting on her. Now, Carla had two options here. She could sit there and resist and hit back and get angry and defensive, or she could sit there and go into love. And that's what Carla chose to do. She chose to love this person and to send love and light and healing energy to the person in such a way, basically applying the balm of Gilead to this person. Now, I wish I could say the boss became nice after a while. That didn't happen. But the boss did go to other people and start saying that Carla was the best part of the group, that Carla was the most efficient person around. And in doing so, that feedback did make Carla's life a lot easier. So that just kind of points out the importance there of if you get slapped across the face, love the person who does the slapping. In doing so, you change yourself and you may change your circumstances.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
I think I might have read that in Carla's book, Living the Law of One. Do you remember if she told that story in that
I
book?
heard it from Morris.
Oh,
She talks about it in the book. She wasn't going to detail about what happened afterwards. She just said that she was kind to the woman and it kind of dissipated. She didn't go into details that Linda did. And Linda was there.
I wasn't there.
Morris was there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, the subject of Ho'oponopono has come up several times in some of our recent Zoom sessions, and it seems like she might not have been thinking consciously of that and might not have used the same words, but was certainly practicing it in her own way. Maybe, Linda, for our viewers who are not real familiar with what Ho'oponopono is, would you mind sharing a little bit about it?
Ho'oponopono is basically a Hawaiian form of forgiveness. It's like I said, developed in Hawaii. Basic four phrases are I love you, I thank you, please forgive me, and I'm sorry, sometimes in a different order.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys ever heard of?
And apparently has a lot of metaphysical power in healing relationships. At least that's what I've heard from many who have used it.
It is extremely powerful. And when I first heard it, I was sitting there saying, how can these four phrases change a life so much? And then I tried practicing it, and it's incredible, the changing thing it does, not only to yourself, but also to other selves that you are going through life with.
For our viewers who are curious about that, I believe the spelling is Ho'Oponopono. Ho'oponopono, I believe. Is that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Anthony, was there something you wanted to comment on?
Yeah, just real quick. That reminds me of. Have you guys ever heard of a woman? I think it's late 50s, early 60s. No, probably late 60s, early 70s. Anyways, in that time frame here, back in the day, called the Peace Pilgrim. She was a woman who, middle-aged woman who one day decided to get up and begin walking like Forrest Gump did, right? And she literally had nothing on except her clothes. And she would only eat if she was given food, and she would only sleep if she was offering a place to live. And she went out with this idea of, I'm going to be kind to everyone that I meet. And the unlikely cause of this is actually she never went more than a day without food, never went a night without, more than a night without a place to sleep. And there was this part where she talks about, she saw this child that was, in a sense, being abused by a parent. This is in later times, so parents were more, able to hit their kids, I guess. I know my dad used to slap me upside the head every now and then, unfortunately. And this is the 80s, right? And so I can imagine back then. But she said something to the point where she got in between of them. And she looked at this person with so much love and so much compassion, right? To this person, that the person is, because they're about to hit their child, and the person just like lowered their hand and walked away. And so there's a power in being able to I don't want to say fight for love, but stand in the light, or stand for love, right? To be able to sit there and say, I love you. Now what? Now what you gonna do, right?
Beautiful story. And I believe that one is one that Carla talked about in her book as well, Living the Law of 101. Heather, anything to add? Any thoughts?
I just like the way they say, there may come a time within incarnation when you balance at the gateway to intelligent infinity. Seeing your life as a whole thing, one integrated entirety. As part of the Godhead principle, it may well come to say, and this is good. It's like, that's just so beautiful. I just think it's so beautiful. But then it says you're going to be plunged back into the cycles again. So,
So
All
enjoy
right.
it while it lasts.
Yeah, enjoy that
Gotta keep it
moment.
fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't always pick up on that part of the passage, so I appreciate your highlighting it because,
That's
yeah,
that small
I can
print.
think of moments when I was feeling that, experiencing that, but yeah, those moments often seem fleeting and far between. Any other thoughts on this passage before we change topics?
Just real quickly, and the point it said, and this is good, just as important as love and faith, I think, is gratitude, is being able to thank the Creator for all the blessings that have been bestowed on you. Even if you don't think there's a blessing in sight, there always is. And like I said, this is good. And just keep that in the forefront every day.
So beautifully said. Yeah. And that includes being thankful for the different people, different catalysts in your life who are, like Anthony, I said, it's like resistance training. It's heavier weights that are helping you go stronger in your polarity and your positive polarity, for sure. Let's go ahead and take a look at a passage on something that is fairly familiar to students of the Law of One, and that is the poker game. In session 50 of the Raw Contact, question 7, Ra said, "Let us give the example of the man who sees all the poker hands. He then knows the game. It is but child's play to gamble, for it is no risk. The other hands are known, the possibilities are known, and the hand will be played correctly, but with no interest. In time, space, and in the true color green density, the hands of all are open to the eye. The thoughts, the feelings, the troubles, all these may be seen. There is no deception and no desire for deception. Thus, much may be accomplished in harmony, but the mind, body, spirit gains little polarity from this interaction. Let us re examine this metaphor and multiply it into the longest poker game you can imagine, a lifetime. The cards are love, dislike, limitation, unhappiness, pleasure, etc. They are dealt and redealt continuously. You may, during this incarnation, begin, and we stress begin, to know your own cards. You may begin to find the love within you. You may begin to balance your pleasure, your limitations, etc. However, your only indication of other selves' cards is to look into the eyes. You cannot remember your hand, their hands, perhaps even the rules of the game. This game can only be won by those who lose their cards in the melting influence of love, can only be won by those who lay their pleasures, their limitations, their all upon the table face up and say inwardly, all of you players, each other self, whatever your hand, I love you. This is the game, to know, to accept, to forgive, to balance, and to open the self and love. This cannot be done without the forgetting, for it would carry no weight in the life of the mind, body, spirit, being this totality. Super fascinating passage with so many different aspects and layers to it to look at. Let me go straight to Linda on this one. Linda, did you have any thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Well, I was just thinking that's quite the reason that the fourth density span of evolution is so freaking long, 40 million years. Whereas, like I said, third density, 75,000, although sometimes we repeat that cycle over and over. But like I said, there's so much chance here for evolutionary growth, and it's so much more difficult to grow evolutionary, even though it's harmonious, when you know what everybody else is thinking and there's no skin in the game, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, and it is why the veil of forgetting, as it's called, was instituted only in third density. Apparently, in third density, part of incarnating is having a what they call a veil of forgetting lowered, where you forget that all is one and you forget that every person who seems to be somebody else is in fact yourself as another creator. Specifically because, as they said in the poker hand, if you can see everybody else's cards, it's really not fun anymore. There's no challenge to it. So part of the challenge to third density is to make these choices to love others on blind faith, perhaps, as we were saying, without really knowing that they are, in fact, yourself, creator. That's a big deal, I would think. Heather, any thoughts? Anything to add to that?
I just this one really talks about, one, how to play the game, or the things that come up in the game, the dislike, the limitations, and happiness, pleasure, and how these are experiences that come up every day, every week, throughout the entire lifetime. And all we can do is meet those with love. And then it goes on to say, the game can only be won by those who lay the cards down in the melting influence of love. So it comes back to like what Anthony was saying. It just all comes back to love. You have to learn to love other selves, learn to love yourself, learn to love the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the idea of being in a poker game, high stakes poker game, and just laying your cards down and saying, "Hey, I just want to say, everyone, I love you. Don't try that in Vegas. It's gonna go well for you."
You got this.
But
You
it's
got the same.
pretty
You got the
entertaining.
same visual I got, John. Because
Yeah,
that's exactly what I saw in my mind. I saw like a cowboy guy like about to lose his hand. He's like, you know what, guys?
yeah.
I love you guys. You know what? No, no need to worry about the rest of the betting. I love you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and leave now.
And then there was a shootout in the
Exactly.
saloon. Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, and that's pretty honest analogy here in third density. We love completely. We put our hands down, and sometimes we get shot at, and sometimes we get a little hurt. But it's part of the game, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. I don't remember who sang it. Kenny Rogers. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to
Know when to
walk
walk away.
away, know when to run.
When to get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose maybe to switch from the video game metaphor or poker metaphor to back to the school metaphor. Um, it has been said many times in channeling sessions that what you experience in third density is like a closed book test. Because as Linda was reminding us, in fourth, fifth, sixth density and beyond, there is no veil. So you already know all the answers. You know that love is the answer to every question and solution to every problem. You already know that all is one. You already know that every other entity is yourself. So it's not possible to hate someone else. So it's only when you close the book and have to take those tests yourself, be challenged with people who seem to be super annoying or super psychopathic, for lack of a better word, and to still love them unconditionally. That's the test here. And once you realize that that's the test, it's a whole lot easier, I think, maybe to pass the test or play the game, as it were. Any other metaphors or analogies or comments anyone wants to throw in there?
And I would say too that when you're saying that, a part of me is saying, how can I love that person that does these things, right? How can I hug and kiss and do all those things? And and kind of what I would challenge people to say is the love that Jonathan and when we're talking about is not that type of love. It's not the love that is a romantic type of thing. It's not a fluffy thing. It's the love that creates and destroys the entire universe. It's a much more of an acceptance and kind of of awareness. I'm not saying that when I see someone that does something I dislike, and same thing with you, I assume when you're saying that we love someone, we're not going to go up and give them a hug, but to say, you know what, I've been angry too, and I know what it's like to feel that way, and to have that patience and have that space for them. When someone is doing something that is vulgar and even, downright disgusting, right? The fact that you are even aware and perceive that, there's an aspect of yourself that is partaking in that, right? Can you love that part of yourself, right? And so the ability to be able to accept everything that comes to you is probably a more precise definition. It's not, I'm going to go up and hug the rapist. It's going to say, you know what? In my whole lifetime, there's times where I had some very rapist type thoughts, maybe once or twice, even for a second, I may have had those thoughts. And in that moment, I can relate to that, right? I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but my mind has the capability to do that. Therefore,
Sure.
Given the circumstances, I could be that. And to understand that there's a possibility to then accept, not necessarily condone, but to accept those portions of our other selves.
Sure. Yeah, and as I think we have mentioned once or twice earlier in our conversation, much of our third density incarnations is really about balancing energies of love and wisdom. And in some cases, that means setting boundaries. I mean, you can still love a abusive spouse, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in the abusive relationship. You can still love a pedophile, but that doesn't mean you're going to pay him to babysit your kids. It's like there is such a thing as setting reasonable boundaries. And yet the challenge is still to love them as an other self, as another face of the creator, at the same time that you are not going to allow them to hurt you or enslave you or do the same to others. It's an important distinction, I think. Anyone else have any thoughts on that or anything on this passage before we take a look at one more, I believe? Sounds good. Well, let's take a look at one more passage on one more game, and that is hide and seek. This is from February 8th, 2025, not that long ago. This has been edited for brevity. Here, a person named M says, do you have any guidance for staying more mindful of the mindset of seeking the love in the moment? Quote says, we would point out that within this query is the ever-present dynamic of the third density. For if holding love and discovering love in the moment were easy, even for the seeker who has walked the path through many incarnations, then the gifts of third density would not be available to the seeker. For it is in the difficulty, it is in the contrast and the friction where the essential quality of experience that the creator is seeking can be found. For the creator has cast out its creation in this attempt to hide from itself and its true nature, that which he may identify within the third density as love. If love were already apparent, the creator would not be able to play this game of life with itself. It must shield this knowledge from itself, and in doing so, has manifest all of creation that you currently experience in this moment as the third density. And so we would encourage any seeker struggling with the difficulties identified within this query to remember that love can often be very hidden, and that the seeker has patterns and difficulties that keeps them from holding this perspective. When this occurs, we suggest to the seeker to turn inward into the heart and not to attempt to force a perception of love, but to touch again that desire to find love and recognize that this is the desire of the creator, and that in touching it, you can find love within that moment through the fact that you desire to find it. Such a beautiful passage. I have gone back and read this many times over and over, and I think there's so much beauty and love in there. It often makes me get pretty weepy and teary. I think the part that's really funny here is the part in the first paragraph of Ko's response where they said, if holding love and discovering love in the moment were easy, even for the seeker who has walked the path through many incarnations, then the gifts of third density would not be available to the seeker. If I'm understanding that correctly, they're saying that if third density was easy for you, you wouldn't be allowed to incarnate in third density. They're only allowing people through who find this extremely difficult and challenging because that's where the real learning comes from. I think that's just super interesting. Otherwise, I guess we'd be like surrounded by Gandhis and Jesuses and Buddhas all over the place because they would know they've already mastered the game, so they're not allowed to play the game again. I just think that's hilarious. Heather, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Definitely seeking love in the moment. I think that's what this whole passage really points to, and it really brings about the thought to stay present. Often we, look to the future or we're looking to the past and trying, but if we can just stay present and seek love in the moment, that's where the power is. It also talks about the friction is where the creator really gets the experience, right? That's what the creator really wants is that bit of friction, which, you know, being down here in 3D, sometimes friction isn't always the easiest. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, super interesting for sure. And I believe the central question of this passage was actually about the present moment. We did a podcast episode on that not too long ago because it comes up a lot. And there is a definite beauty power to be found in the present moment. I think it has been compared to experiencing infinity and to catching magic if you can actually be in that present moment. So, viewer who's interested in that, check out our podcast episode on the present moment. Linda, did you have anything to add? Any thoughts, reflections?
Well, I'm going to jump on Heather's image of the friction because I see in my mind we come down here and we're a very rough stone. And then through all our experiences, every time we lose a game or play the game and change the game at all, some of that friction wears away the stone so that we're left finally with a beautiful shining diamond that is our true self. And again, Heather, that was a beautiful observation that it is the present moment. That's the message. That was perfect.
And the friction, apparently, as they said, that's by design. That's not a bug in the system. That's part of the design. Anthony, anything to add?
Oh yeah. Share this quote from Quo real quick, kind of piggyback on this. They said, "You have sacrificed much for this opportunity to serve. Take, seize, grasp this opportunity, not to rush forward with it, but to sit embracing it. Ask it, change me as I must be, alter to do the will of the infinite one. Humble me, comfort me, give me companions along my way. Give me persistence, stubbornness, and courage. Let me love insult and misunderstanding. Let me embrace criticism and shame. Let me become empty. These are the prayers of the brothers and sisters of sorrow. These are the prayers of tears and joy beyond all knowing."
So beautiful. Yeah. What do you think? Any comments of your own to add to that? Thoughts
Well,
of your
the
own?
reason, oh yeah, definitely. The reason why I brought that up because it really piggybacks. Well, for someone like myself who resonates kind of with the idea of being a wanderer, the idea of loving so much, right? To then willing to take this risk, right? To come down here and to hopefully wake up enough then to be an example to the others around us. For what reason? Why? Because we love so much. That we love so much is like the equivalent of saying, like to a survivor, throw me in the woods butt naked, come back in a week, I'm gonna have a bear skin on my back, I'm gonna have a cabin built, because I'm that good at doing that, right? I'm that skillful of a outdoorsman or woman, right? And that's kind of the attitude that we take as wanderers. We come in here, we risk all this forgetting for the one purpose of loving the creator, right? And to remember and to have faith that we can do it in any circumstance. No matter where you throw me in the darkest, deepest part of the universe, I will find the creator.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's what I love most about this passage, this whole idea that it's like a game of hide and seek.
yes.
The one infinite creator is also referred to as intelligent infinity, meaning that God is infinitely intelligent, has been around, let's just say, since the beginning of time, and has learned everything there is to learn, and yet still always wants to know more, and that it still wants to find itself. So it has to play this game of hide and seek with itself by dropping this veil of forgetting over us, so we forget and find it harder to find that love and to find the creator in other selves. But that last part where they say in the end, to touch again that desire to find love, when you're trying to find love in the moment, touch again that desire to find love and recognize that this is the desire of the creator, and that in touching it, you can find love within that moment through the fact that you desire to find it. I believe they're saying that that desire to find the love in the moment, that is the love that you're seeking. That is the creator's love. That's just so beautiful and poetic. Yeah, should probably end there.
That's the inside joke too, as well. Is as you read the material, I said before, as you read the material and over again, you see that Hatan and Latwi, they always say that, to seek what you desire, seek what it is. And it took me years to realize it. I remember I was reading it, I was like, this is like an inside little joke, that what you're trying to get us to understand is what we seek is we're seeking to connect with the creator. But you don't tell us that. You tell us to go out, and when I first heard it, what I think, I'm thinking, okay, well, I desire this girl, or I desire this money, or I desire this form of intoxication, right? And how could they be telling me to go seek that desire, right? And so then you go out and you test these things and you don't feel fulfilled, and you come back to the material and you're like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And if you continue to seek, you'll eventually, don't take my word for it, but eventually you'll come to the realization that what you seek is something you've always had, and that is the creator.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, the actual act of seeking is the thing that you're trying to seek. I was trying to find. The call was coming from inside your house the whole time. Any other questions, comments on this? Oh, it's been a great discussion, panelists. I really enjoy having you here. Thank you so much for being. So where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons that we might want to remember from our discussion today? I have 4 for your consideration. 1, rule number 1 of the game of life is to choose between the path of service to self or service to others, and polarize as much as you can on it. If you were not aware that that is the meaning of life, shall we say, that is pretty much the whole point to third density incarnation. So choose to either think of others at least as much as you think of yourself, and being kind and treating others as equals, or think only of yourself and never think of anybody else, not more than 5% of the time, and be as cruel as you can to others. Either path is acceptable to creator, but make a choice and choose as best you can. And that the lessons and tests in this incarnation are going to repeat until you master them. If not in this incarnation, then probably in the next. And learn how to love the game and see it as enjoyable rather than as a punishment or something that you have to endure. Hopefully, the more you understand the game, the more enjoyable it is. And remember that you are the creator playing hide and seek with itself, as is everyone else. Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, Anthony?
Just what I've been saying. I mean, go back to Hatan. I hear an unspoken question, and the answer is love. As simple as that. Because the answer is always love. And I encourage you guys, if you don't feel that way and you're watching this, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong. Change my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
All set. Linda?
Well, I have to agree with Anthony. Love is the answer. I think that is the most important lesson that we can get from this podcast. And I also like the ones of staying in the present moment, not looking to the past or the future, but just staying right here now and feeling gratitude. Even if you don't think that you are being showered with blessings, you can always find something to be grateful for. And the more that you thank and praise the Creator, the better you're going to be, the better your life will be.
So beautifully said. Yes, thank you. Cannot emphasize that enough. Heather?
Yeah, I think what everybody said so far, and we'll just throw the faith on top of that. Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, all super important. Panelists, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your love and wisdom and pointing out things that I had not seen or had not thought of. It's been a joy. Viewers, I did want to note that if you enjoyed this episode, you might want to check out our podcast episodes on densities and dimensions, service to self versus service to others if you want to learn a little bit more about that particular path, chakras or energy centers, reincarnation, hero's journey, looking for love. Those are all episodes where we do little deeper dives into themes that we have touched on today. Otherwise, did also want to remind you that Carla's book called Living the Law of One, 101 The Choice, is available at the L&L Research Library shown on your screen. And there, that whole book is about life being basically a game of life. Goes a lot into the energy centers as well. Otherwise, it is time to see how much we have learned today. Time for our pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do to end our time together on a fun note and maybe look for law of one connections to pop culture. Since today's episode was about the game of life, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on the 3-movie franchise about people who get sucked into a game where they have to go through a lot of intense catalysts, shall we say, before they can return to the real world. The first one starred Robin Williams. The other two came 22 years after that, starring The Rock, Kevin Hart, Karen Gillan, and Jack Black. I, of course, referring to what movie franchise, panelists?
Jumanji.
Jumanji, indeed. Panelists, have you seen any or all of these movies?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Well done, and well done, viewer watching this who got that right as well. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, I believe, about this movie series. See how many you can get right. Panelists, say your answers out loud. If you're watching this on video, say your answers out loud. We can hear you through time space. As always, points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something new about Law of One connections in pop culture, you won as well. How about your first question? Let's go back to the beginning. Before Robin Williams was cast as Alan Parrish in the first Jumanji movie, who else was in the running for that role? Was it A, Bruce Willis, B, Tom Hanks, C, Kevin Costner, or D, Harrison Ford? What do you think, panelists?
I would say B, Tom Hanks, but I have no idea, really.
I say B too.
I'm
B
going
is
to go
great
with
guess.
Kevin Costner.
Nice. The correct answer is all of the above. Not only those, but also Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Sean Connery, Michael Keaton, Bill Paxton, Bryan Cranston, and Arnold Schwarzenegger all apparently were in the running for the role. Apparently, the director was kind of worried that Robin Williams' improvisational style might undermine the tightly woven script, but that obviously turned out to be okay and worked out fine. Are any fans of Robin Williams on the panel or watching on video?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Mork from work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The first alien we've ever encountered.
Nanu, right?
Yeah, it seems at least the funniest one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a beautiful actor, such a beautiful soul. So many great movies: Fisher King, Hook, Good Will Hunting. A lot of folks in the Law of One community have recommended What Dreams May Come, which had him as a star, but I haven't seen. Has anyone seen that movie?
Long time ago. I believe that might have been the one where his wife in the movie committed suicide. And then he went into the afterworld to find her there. And
Yeah.
that's all I remember of it.
Yeah, I think I read the description. I read the plot summary. If I remember right, I don't think she died by suicide. I think she died in a car accident or something, as did he. But he ended up going to a good place like heaven. She ended up going to a bad place like hell. And because he loved her so much, he was willing to leave heaven and go to hell to try to rescue her. And beautiful story, beautiful visuals, as I understand it. Let's try another one. How about this? In Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, what was Kevin Hart's character's greatest weakness? Was it A, venom, B, cake, or C, dance fighting?
I think it was something silly like cake.
I'll say cake.
All right, cake. Cake it is.
Cake it is. Yes. I forgot this. I had to go back and bring it up on YouTube to remember what the deal was. When he eats cake, he explodes. He literally explodes in a fiery glory. Great movie, though. Great actor, too. Great person. Any fans of Kevin Hart on the panel or watching on video?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, super funny dude. He was also MC for the Tom Brady roast on Netflix. Did anybody see the roast of Tom Brady?
Mm.
If you like roast humor, like I do, and it's a acquired taste, it's basically people saying nasty, horrific things about other people in a humorous way and with love in their hearts, I'm sure. But he MC'd that thing, and it was like 3 hours long, which is a humongously long span of time to maintain energy in a room and humor and such. And he just did a beautiful job. He also got the Mark Twain Prize for Humor last year, I believe. So lots of great stories about him. Encourage people to check it out on Netflix. How about your third question? In Jumanji Next Level, what was Karen Gillan's character's dance fighting song? Was it A, Baby I Love Your Way, B, Blitzkrieg Bop, or C, Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting?
I think it's A, if I remember from the movie, because it was like a slow song. But she was
Good
like
guess.
all fighting, she was like fighting really fast and aggressive.
Good guess. Heather, Linda?
Got no idea, but I kind
Yeah.
of like Blitzkrieg Bop.
By the Ramones. Great song. Heather?
I would have guessed C, but now that Anthony says it, I do think it was a slow song. Yeah.
Very good. Yes, indeed. Baby, I Love Your Way by Peter Frampton. She used it in both the Jumanji movies she was in, I believe, to great comedic effect. Any Karen Gillan fans on the panel or watching on video?
I've never seen her outside of this movie, to be honest with you, at least I don't remember her.
Oh, you most definitely did, my friend. She was in the Avengers movies and the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Who was
She
she in
was
the
the
Avengers?
character of Nebula.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. I didn't know she
I
was.
didn't
Okay,
know
I
that.
see it now. That's Nebula. Okay, wow. Wow. She's a pretty good actress then.
Great actress. Yeah, great in this movie, great in those movies. And yeah, I don't know how many hours it took to put on the makeup to play Nebula in those movies. But yeah, definitely takes a lot of will, I think, as an actor to go through all that. For sure. Let's try one more. How about this? In Jumanji Next Level, what was Dwayne The Rock Johnson's character strength? Was it A, speed, B, boomerang, C, switchblade, or D, smoldering intensity?
Got to go with D.
Nice.
I'll go with D also.
I think so, because like he did like his face or something like that when they asked to see it or something like that.
Then look at that picture there. That is smoldering intensity.
Sorry, I was distracted by his chest and biceps, but yes, you're right. Correct answer is A, B, and D. I believe all of those things were his
Really?
avatars, yeah, strengths
Boomerang? Interesting.
and speed. Switchblade in this movie was not his strength. It was actually the name of a character who was his greatest weakness. It turned out to be a character who was also had a relationship with the love interest here. So they were going after the same woman, and Switchblade ends up blowing him up at some point with a rocket launcher, I believe, which is great. Any fans of Dwayne Johnson or The Rock? So many great movies. Yeah. I have not actually seen that many of his movies. I guess he was in the Fast and Furious franchise, but I haven't really seen any of those. He was in a really great movie called Fighting with My Family. Has anyone seen that? It
Yeah, I
also,
remember he used to be a wrestler.
right, right. It also
People's
stars
Elbow?
Florence Pugh, who was also in Avengers movies, I believe, as Scarlett Johansson's sister. But she plays a young girl from England who's trying to get into WWE, and The Rock eventually she connects with him, and he becomes somewhat of a mentor for her, which I'm sure is a throwback to all his previous days. There was a great line, though, where he says to her at some point, don't be the next me, be the first you, which was about not trying to pretend to imitate somebody else, but be yourself, who you are, which I think is such a great Law of One message for all. Panelists, it has been a joy as always hanging out with you. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&O Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, Namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy the journey.